final question for you. So, do you have any questions for me before we start?
No. I really don't. I'm just
All
looking
right.
forward to it.
Sounds good, man. So then I'll just be a minute or so while I'm looking for some stuff to talk about.
My ultimate charge. Excuse me for
All right. So there maybe could have pushed the ball, right? So in this instance, right, or just we receive ball over here. This is possibly an instance where we could just roll up next to him and flashbang him. This could secure, this could allow our team to, we have our entire team here. That could get a bunch of us to be able to see him, at least put a lot of pressure into him, and then at the very minimum, if we get him down really low, even without killing him, that just puts him out of the fight for a little bit, right? Which would probably be pretty good for our team. So there's really, I wouldn't see any reason not to just try to run at him. And then here even goes into the room, and we see him go into the room. So that would just be again it'd probably be even harder for him to
Yeah.
escape there, right?
Yeah,
So
that's fair.
so that's just
I
where we
think
can look to push him. Go ahead.
yeah, I think that the call was Zarya because the
Mm,
Winston was diving the Zarya, so I turned
hmm.
around to do that.
Okay.
But no, like that does make sense. Just pushing the ball when I have the chance.
All right. So far, I think we might talk about something in a moment, anyways.
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna talk. Uh, Noticing a little bit of these weird do you see that right there? Do you know what that's up with? Is your mouse like good? Because there's like these weird I've noticed that before too, but like your mouse will kind of like shift to the side really fast. You see that? Like kind of a
Oh yeah,
yeah.
that's me normally just fixing my mouse because I
Mm,
slipped it too far on the mouse
Hello,
pad.
my
okay.
ultimate is charging.
It's just like a snap, so it's kind
Oh
of
yeah, it's weird. It's weird, yeah.
mm, okay. So one thing we're gonna talk about right away here, because I'm just noticing it. So we're 40 seconds in. So we're gonna talk about crosshair placement. Are you familiar with that term?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Placing it where the enemy's gonna be.
Yep, that's definitely a big part of
What's
it.
this
So maybe we
thing in
don't
your
have to even talk about that
dispenser,
one,
sir?
right? But there's another part to it that I think would probably be pretty helpful to you, right? And you just want to make sure we're paying attention to it while you're playing. So, and that is while we're playing, we want to make sure that we're aiming at head level, right? Good crosshair placement is going to make sure we're aiming there. So a
Yeah.
lot of the times here, I'm noticing that we're walking around, kind of aiming real low to the ground, and that's just going to mean that we have to adjust further to hit headshots. And the further we have to adjust, right, the harder shot this is to hit, right, when we have to adjust super far than if we just went side side. It's just really easy. Now,
Luck of a
let's say
duck.
just say we're just spamming down a corridor, shooting the shields, shooting just a default level. Right now, all our shots are just body level, whereas if we make this put at head level, now all the shots are just spamming in there to shields, down a corridor, into people, just are naturally by default headshots, right? So we just want to make sure we're aiming there, so it just becomes very easy to hit headshots and very natural, rather than just hitting body shots, which will result in more damage and then therefore faster kills and more kills if you're doing that appropriately.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, yeah. Because I mean, I'm very aware with like the pre-aim with the crosshair,
Hmm.
but I never really thought to just put it at the head level just to make it
Yep,
even easier. Yeah, that makes
exactly.
sense.
All right, so here, let's see what we're doing.
Small, the smallest
I hear
things
you.
really do help. I'm pushed way too far forward here, but I think that it's because I know they can't get me.
Yeah, I know
Like
that's
once I
fine.
see everyone come in, I roll out,
Yeah,
or
there's
I
there's no issue
try
with
and
this currently, right? It's not, they can't. They're really really far away from you, and we also have our whole team here, right? Um, it's
yeah,
so we shouldn't really have anything to worry about. Now here, I think we might be going up to the high ground. No, maybe I missed all that. So
yeah,
notice just again, this is kind of what we were doing with our
Yeah,
hog
howdy.
with the flicks. So where we like here, watch what we do with the tracer, where we're looking real far down, and then we kind of flick up to the left on her, and we do that, right? Um, Flicks
yeah,
aren't really, like I just said, to re-clarify this, flicks aren't necessary in every situation. So when flicks are necessary is when someone's sneaking up behind us, when it's a fast moving target. Let's say like Tracer blinks behind us, right? Now you have to flick around to go and line up her head, line up with her really fast. Flicking is inherent, like by definition is moving across there very fast. We can
yeah,
also flick if someone just like appears on our screen, or we're swapping targets. So let's say we kill Tracer and we're trying to move over to the Diva or the Brig, then we can flick over to them. Or if we're just sitting here normally and then someone appears on the high ground, we can flick up to them. Those are situations where flicking is necessary. But when we're already aiming in the general direction of somebody and we're kind of already have our crosshair on them, flicking is going to do more harm than good because it could just end up making your crosshair go off of them, right? And it's not going to be it's not going to be a very consistent aim style, which is where you get into things like on Hog, where you can have one game where you're at a 70% hook accuracy, and then in the next game where you're at a 30% hook accuracy, because flicking is very inconsistent, right? Whereas when you learn crosshair placement and tracking and placing your crosshair in good places, and that is going to be a much more consistent aim style that allow you to, even on days where you're not feeling like you're not feeling the best, you're still going to be able to aim okay, right? So that's just when to flick,
Yeah.
when not to flick, right?
Now,
Yeah, that
watch
just
your
like set
back.
off a light bulb in my head
Mm,
because the main note that I've been given for every team that I've ever been on, every person that I've ever played with, that's like Diamond or Masters,
mm,
is that I'm very inconsistent, and
yeah,
I'm almost 100% positive that
mm,
that's the reason
yeah.
why.
In aim
Like that just clicked
specifically,
the
yeah.
biggest light bulb in my head.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And that's
because
not
aim is everything
good.
for this game. Not everything. That's the main issue with
Mm,
me is that like my aim is inconsistent, so it
yeah.
hurts.
Hmm.
And wow, that yeah,
Hmm.
that
Yeah, I
really does
mean that
hurt.
might not be the only mistake, right? There's
Yeah, it's not the
inconsistencies
only.
everywhere,
No,
but definitely,
I messed
definitely a
up a
big one,
lot of
yeah.
times, but yeah.
Hmm. All right, so let's continue on then.
Yeah, the call was go, so I
Got
went
it.
go, and then I'm like, oh hey, high ground's
Whoa
cool, and
there.
a dead diva's also cool.
So again, just kind of I'm noticing that like just the weird crosshair shaking again, where like you come up here and it's like these weird
Got it.
stutters. I'm just thinking, do you mind telling me like what sensitivity or DPI are you at?
I do not know how to figure out my DPI, so I
Okay,
think that that's important.
yeah. So do you know what your
Um,
sensitivity is on?
yes, let me find out real quick. My sensitivity is at 1.9.
Okay, so that's pretty low, which I would assume then maybe your DPI is a little bit higher then. So
Yeah,
DPI is something you can find in whatever mouse software you have. So like if you have Razer, it'd be in your Razer software, Logitech software. Or if you're
mm,
running like just a random office mouse, then that might be it.
yeah.
And then you might not have anywhere to really check. So what do you know what mouse you're running?
I'm running a Logitech one,
Okay,
so
so if
let's
you have
see.
software for that, you should be able to check there. I was just thinking maybe if it's like insanely high, then that could be an issue. But it could also be that you're resetting your a lot. Or do you find that you're needing to like pick your mouse up and like reset to the middle a ton?
Because I was just about to bring that up. I have a
Mm,
very small mouse space, so
okay,
that's what it is
so
me just to pick
do
up my mouse and drag it
all
back.
right. So you said mouse space or mouse pad? Like,
What?
is it so do you have a small mouse pad, or do you physically do you not have enough space like
Oh, I
on
don't
your
have
desk
enough
for it?
space. I don't
Okay.
have space on my desk now.
Oh, okay, that's unfortunate. So then in that case, you might find more benefit out of raising your sensitivity a little bit more, just so that you're not having to do that readjustment as much. And then with a smaller mouse pad space, you kind of naturally have to have a higher sensitivity. Whereas, of course, I probably recommend getting bigger space, but if that's not always an option,
Yeah,
then raising your sensitivity slightly might also be a good option, just so you're not having to do these like constant readjustments, which can probably I would imagine comes up at sometimes where you're aiming and then you run out of mouse space and then now you have to
yeah,
readjust in the middle of
not
shooting
good.
at someone,
I
right?
think that this
Whoa
diva shot's an
there.
example of it because I am on a beeline to this diva and my tracking, excuse me, is really good. And then my finger hits my freaking keyboard.
Mm,
So I have to readjust and I can't go left anymore.
yeah. Yeah, so
Not going
might be
over.
something to think
My
about.
ultimate is charging.
Yeah, yeah, not falling over that edge because it's
Mhm.
not good to be that aggressive. No.
I hear you. My ultimate is charging. Barrier activated.
You're fully healed.
I think that, like, I mean, even
Acknowledge.
my random walk behind was weird because, like, I went all the way to point, put a spray, and then just ran back,
Yeah.
and I did absolutely nothing. So I
Which,
need
you
to
know,
just kinda hold the angle rather than try and
yeah.
run out.
I mean, so it was in between fights, so I'd probably say that that was a pretty, some mistakes are bigger than other mistakes. I'd probably say that was a pretty low, like on the spectrum of mistakes. It wasn't
Yeah.
super important. It probably didn't in the long run. That at most that cost you like 3% ult charge, and that's it. But in any case, that's that is still something to consider. You want to make sure you're doing things.
Damn it. Hold up now. I hear you.
Yeah, so you see, oh wow, okay, yeah, so you see
Hello.
that right there was just like these weird just shots. Okay, here we get like super weird with our positioning. So positioning wise, keep in mind that what composition are they on currently?
They are on a, weird dive.
Yeah, so
Weird.
I would constitute this as a dive, right? Usually supports don't dive in anyways, so like the only character that they're
Yeah.
really not running as a dive it would be like the McCree, but this is enough of a dive. Once they get over like two fast moving characters, it's pretty much a dive. So I just say this is a dive. When team composition, or so basically what we want to be thinking about here is team composition dictates play style. So when we are up against different team compositions, we play differently. So when we are up against a ton of flankers or a dive composition, probably not going to want to stray off on our own a ton, whereas here we go off on our own. So why that is because when we're with our team we get much more team support. It's very easy to dive someone who's off on their own, whereas if we're with our team we can support our team, so we can provide our flashbang and shots to be able to fend them off while also getting
Yeah.
support and healing. Whereas if we're up against any other team composition, going off on your own is a lot less dangerous and a lot more value that you'll get out of it, but because you can get around shields and tanks, whereas when you are running up against a dive, like what shields and tanks are you even getting around by going over on angle like this, right? So
Yeah. That makes sense.
here we just, and then on top of that, like so first off, don't stray away from your team very far. Secondly, we just kind of run straight at them super aggressively, which just is probably, I would very much imagine this gets us killed here.
Easy.
Right, and then yeah, we die, right? So want to make sure. Obviously,
Yeah.
deaths are bad. We want to look to cut that out of our gameplay. So just staying with our team, not getting as aggressive. Skip back to where we were, or yes, just skip till we get there. Um, why did that take us? Why did that take us 20
Get
seconds to
eyes
walk back?
Hey, defend the objective.
Okay. Oh, maybe it was just that 5 times it looked weird, a little weird.
Acknowledge you know what time
Yeah.
it is.
Okay, so here we're waiting on point. Probably mentioned going for a high noon. All right, so this is where I would be thinking in my head. Where's the one? We're at 94%. Where's the one place that they have to go?
Point.
Yeah.
So I've
So
gotta hold the point.
so we got to hold the point, right? Exactly. So we probably don't need to be pushing it all here because they're first off they're gonna have to come to point any second. Secondly,
Yeah.
high noon, right? When they're on point, do they have any cover?
No,
Not
no.
really,
So
right?
it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation to where that's gonna get a lot more value if I just stay
Mhm.
on point and wait.
Yep. So High Noon, it doesn't always need to be used as a zoning ultimate. It's just
Yeah.
occasionally where it can be used like that. So the situations where High Noons could be really good as a zoning ultimate to just get them off of a point is when you are about to cap or if it's overtime. In this case, it's almost both of those, right? Um, so we're about to cap the point, and if they try to stay on to contest a point, then we kill them, and if they don't, then they don't touch, right? Which means that, or at the very minimum, we just create a lot of pressure, right? So that'd probably just be a really good idea for with our high noon to go for here. Again, kind of staying away from our team a little bit. Go for the flashbang on the ball.
I think I was saving it for someone else. Namely the McCree I just got flashed by and got the drop on because the
Hmm.
ball distracted.
Okay.
But yeah.
Oh, let's break it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So.
that's also crosshair placement. Just missing that first shot because I was already aiming at the ground. Yeah.
Yep. Then on top of that, here we get into awareness, right? So specifically audio awareness of keeping our ears open and making sure we're paying attention so that we're not getting snuck up on by McCree. Because if we had not gotten beated here, we would most certainly be dead, right?
Be dead, 100%.
Mm.
Yeah.
So now we get bailed out by that.
Call that that. Got it.
I'm just shooting mines.
Wouldn't focus
Uh,
a ton on the mines.
well,
Like clear out a path, and then just and then go
exactly
through and
the
then fight. Right, shoot at the actual people. Um,
yeah.
so
I
here
think I got
or
three.
All that a
It's
fair
overtime, and
fight.
we're up two. I think I just got lazy.
yeah. So
Got it.
here we could also like see the mines and maybe just decide to go back. No, that'd be a little bit long. So yeah, I just destroy the mines and then just walk through. Right. So like here, for example, 1, 2, 3 mines, and then we just walk through to this side. Right, as an example. Right, but instead we go 1, 2, 3, and then we look over to that mine, and then we go through. Right, just an extra mine maybe. Yeah, pretty good high noon. Nice flashbang,
I'm
and then I
on.
think that's round. Yep. So
That's the round.
decently good round. Okay, so we stop over to Widow here. How many hits can or like how many DPS characters would you say that you played?
I try to play as many as possible. I play hit scan for Team Valkyrie, and I'm doing flex DPS for Corrupt, which is the
Mm,
team that I'm out to.
okay.
But on it's a Tracer and Widow.
All right. So
It's gonna
then
be
let's talk about that for a moment. So, um, basically, I don't want to, take this is the most up to you out of everything that I say today. This is just, you it's really up to what your goals are and your priorities. If your goal is to just have fun and you have fun playing a bunch of different characters, go ahead and play those different characters. But my recommendation for if your goal is to climb or improve or get better or win games is maybe to narrow your hero pool a little bit more, as spreading yourself too thin can cause a slower improvement rate. So, for example, let's say you just, as an analogy here, let's say you play 6 different characters, which from the likes of it maybe sounds like you play even more than that. Right. So let's just say you play 6 different
yeah.
characters and you have 600 hours on those 6 different characters, roughly 100 hours split, right? Even on each character. If you cut that in half and you go to 3 characters, well, now you've just doubled the amount of time that you're learning specific play styles and positioning and ability usage and ultimate usage, right? Because and then even character, like their mechanics and how their guns work. So each character, a lot of them will have similar things that translate into each other, but they're at the same time they're also each different in their own right. So that extra time, that extra 2 times is going to allow you to learn those characters to a fuller extent, right? And you cut that half, or cut that down from 3 to 2. Now you've just tripled the amount of time from the original, right? Where you now have 300 hours on those characters, and now you have a lot more experience on them. You're going to be able to climb a lot better because now that character specifically is a lot higher of a rank. And then as you get to a super high rank, you start to actually, all those concepts that apply on
Naturally
your character.
improve.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Like just naturally improve on all the rest of them whenever I
Exactly.
get hot enough. To where
Exactly.
if I need to flex, I can, but that's not really the goal.
Exactly, and keep that in mind. Is I probably recommend like 2 to 3 characters, but at the same time, play other characters if they're needed in like ranked or if they're needed in the scrim. Don't say no, I'm not going to play them. You can say
Yeah.
okay, that's fine. The situation calls for it, but it's more like you want to prioritize those specific characters so you can get better at them. So I mean, even if you want to still play flex DPS and hit scan DPS, and you want to play a ton of characters, might want to like narrow that down a little bit more, and then also on top of that keep that in mind for it's also the cross rolls as well. Putting time into tank, the same thing applies as well, and even more so a
Yeah.
little bit because roles are even extra different from each other.
Super different.
So that's just my recommendation. Take it or leave it, and then or take it halfway or whatever, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it makes sense. It really does. Yeah.
Mm. All right.
Man, this is very helpful.
No problem.
Thank you very much.
5, 4, 3, 2,
Bonjour.
Yay for Widow.
Thank you.
I get to play my one trick that I don't one trick anymore. This is what I one tricked in a diamond with in season 5.
Okay. So, dude, getting into your I just trying to understand your decision making here. Is the reason why we didn't grapple up to the middle maker spot that everyone goes to because we're trying not to get sniped?
Yes, I expected the Widow on this
Hmm.
map, and my corrupt they wanted me to run the Widow on this map,
Hmm.
and because I know that a lot of Widows like this map, I
Uh-huh.
expected it. So what I was going to do is I believe I go onto the Widow spot that's on the right of the
Hmm.
point.
Okay.
Like
Yep.
not directly on the point, but
Top right.
this right here. Yep. Yep,
Understood.
Yeah.
exactly right
Okay. So
there.
I like that decision making
Mhm.
a little bit. That's pretty good. It's usually a good idea not to be super obvious when up against another Widow.
Very well.
Now, get in here.
Yep. And I see the Baptiste shooting and just take pot shots at the tank till I see something else.
Regen burst activated.
Okay. Probably want to place
Yep.
your Venom
Diva.
Mine a little bit earlier that before the Diva
Oh
even
yeah.
gets there. That way, like
So,
placing your Venom Mine's going to do a bit for you. The big one is extra damage, right? And that means that as you're
yeah.
SMGing her, she's dying 2 times as fast. And then that means that on squishier targets, you're probably going to be able to finish them if it like a Genji dashed up at you, for example. And then on tanks, it might not finish them, but it creates enough pressure to where you might be able to fend them off, and they're trying to run away to stay alive, right? Which will just it's better than not placing it and then dying
Yeah.
because they
It's
just have a
better to
they
have
out
her
health
not
you.
have. Yeah.
Exactly. So just place that earlier there as well. The other thing to keep in mind as well is just paying attention to team composition, right?
Awareness.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I said awareness.
Mm,
Being aware that, oh hey, they have a diva, which to this point I think I saw the diva maybe
mm,
once, but I still need to click it in my head. Oh hey, they have a
mm.
diva. I'm going to get dope because I know
Exactly,
that.
right? And then that's the first thing we want to be paying attention to every single game is what's our team running, what's their team running, because that's going to again dictate how we're playing our playstyle, right? And what position we're taking and what do we need to be aware of. Because here, yeah, Diva will die, probably going to be diving you, and then that means that we just need to be ready for it with a grapple. And then here, even if
Yeah.
we don't need to know that it's Diva, probably want to always be ready with that grapple because grapple comes a little bit late as well. I'd probably say even it's probably a better idea to have a reaction be to grapple away than to just plop a venom mine down, because that has a
Yeah.
greater chance of getting us to survive. So,
Mhm.
so that'd probably just be what you want to go for. By the way, your mic does seem to be cutting in and out a little bit while you're talking. So if I'm missing what you're saying, that's why. And I think maybe it's like because the sensitivity for the voice activity is a little bit too low, or you're far away.
Oh yeah. I have
Uh,
very quiet mic. Apologies. It's
Okay, yeah,
not
you're good.
very good. It's a
Yeah, it's just
USB kind of mic.
All right. Yeah, you're good. It's just like once in a while you'll go kind of go in and out with it where you're getting real quiet and then you'll talk normal. I just turned you up a little bit then. Okay, so here we
Alright.
try to
Thank
SMG or just try to grapple away, watch out for it, be aware of it.
you.
My ultimate is to
Yep.
form up
Okay, so we
here.
swap
And the
over to
immediate
McCree.
switch because I
Howdy.
needed to
Much
counter the
obliged.
diva and just provide some support to the back line, which I also
Hello.
know is going to get dived because diva. Because
Okay.
that time I realized it. I realized there was a diva now, and not that I'm dead to her.
Mhm.
Yeah. Waiting around, saying hey to the support team. Hey, how you doing?
Mhm.
And now we're.
Acknowledge.
Okay.
Hold up.
Rocket barrage incoming.
Yeah, I didn't have to do anything.
Far just kind
I,
of rolled everyone there.
I punched the maid or the diva to death
My
because I was
ultimate
mad
charge.
about me dying on Widow, and that was all I did.
Now,
Yeah, now I'm just poking because I
Yeah.
know that if the diva comes up to me, that's a fan the hammer roll flash fan the hammer for
Yeah.
most of their. Now I know that I have the tools to actually deal with them rather than being widow and just hoping shift works.
Yeah.
hey there.
Breaking shield, breaking shield.
No.
Oh, support died. That's unfortunate. Let's try and get their support. It's like, and I just fucked.
All right. So
So
here when we back up,
Acknowledged.
probably just better that we back up this way than this way, because diagonally puts us in visibility of everyone and also walks very much through the open. Now, we haven't talked a ton on this topic, but just a quick, briefly going over is just good positioning, and good positioning is the usage of cover, whereas bad positioning is the absence of cover. So when we're just walking through the open where there's no cover anywhere, that's how we die. Whereas let's say we're using cover properly and we're standing somewhere like over here, then we can just in half a second go boop. Now they can't see us, right? And that is
Yeah.
probably going to be like 6 times faster than it would take us if we were standing out in the open, which means that now we have a lot more survivability and then we don't end up dying early. And then that means that we maybe can win the fight, because obviously here, this death has a big impact on us losing the fight, right? And then probably say just even coming out this, trying to fall back this direction would be just much better off for us, as we wouldn't be crossing through that open area as much.
Oh yeah, makes 100% sense. The only reason, or the reason why I decided to go the diagonal is because I was like, oh hey, my support's there and I'm low, but
Yeah.
didn't realize, or I just didn't realize or take note that oh hey, I'm going directly through the line of fire. It's not gonna help.
Okay. Here, probably might not want to be pushed up this far. We're a little bit far push forward, so while we have 2 people in spawn, right? That's means that we and we're also just ahead of our Reinhardt as well and ahead of our tank. So this could result in us getting punished at the moment, especially like if they notice this and just run at us. So little far forwards,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and then I realized I was too far forward, and my Ryan came to save me.
Which now
That
we're
was super cool.
initiating this engagement while down people. So just I guess we don't want to go too far in depth on this as of yet, but just keep in mind that for now, that going in while down 2 people is basically like going into a already lost fight, which means
Oh
that
yeah,
right now we ourselves are basically the one who initiated that already lost fight, which means that in this situation probably not what we want to be doing. So just wait for our teammates to get back, pay attention to them, awareness, right?
I think I'm the one who started shouting, "Don't go in, we're down." That's
As we're
exactly
the
what
one pushing forwards.
I realized. I guess because I pushed forward to kill the May, and I immediately hit S. Like I immediately backed off and
Yeah.
told everybody to go back
Yeah.
because I knew it was not a good idea.
Yeah, which is kind of that situation where like we made the mistake and then we realized that we made the mistake, right?
And we're trying to fix it.
Yeah.
And now, like, I mean, this entire fight's lost, so I'm like, all right, let's
Yeah.
try and back up. Let's see what we can do. And now I'm like, okay, let's poke because why not? Poking's always fun. And then I realized, oh hey, there's all this free space, so I'm just gonna occupy it. I'm gonna play a little bit of tank here and just occupy some space because I know they're not here. And now I know my Ryan's there. This is the oh hey, let's do high noon. And I was waiting, and I was waiting, and I was waiting.
Rocket barrage incoming.
And then I saw that, oh, surprise. I did nothing the entire fight.
Yeah,
Because all
yeah.
I did was wait for an ultimate, even though I should have been able to.
Incoming.
Yep, exactly. You
That was
kind of
very
pinpointed that
useful.
there. So,
Yeah.
yep, I mean, you obviously figured out what we did wrong here, and that's usually a good idea or a
Yep.
good thing, right? Because and that's the type of thing that you should be looking to do while you're in the middle of playing games,
Yeah.
is like watch out for those types of things, right? The easiest way that you can improve, right? And this is how I improved at the game. I went from silver to top 500, 4400, right? And
Yeah.
I did that mainly by just while I'm playing, looking for mistakes, like identifying what the mistake is and then looking to fix them. So, in the situation, mistake would be to, us obviously not participating in the fight. And then therefore the solution would be to
Yeah.
have participated in the fight. And then therefore in the future, we want to make sure we are participating in the fight. And then that's how improvement works, is finding that mistake, trying to fix it, right? And thinking about how we can fix it. So just look to keep that up, and then you'll be able to self improve.
Yeah. Nice.
All right. So let's just skip forward so we got the next fight here.
Yep. And I think
Okay.
I'm doing the same thing again.
Recommendation is, if you're trying to be sneaky, first off,
Don't
maybe don't
avoid
shoot at
flying.
people, right? Secondly,
Yeah.
maybe don't punch stuff. Thirdly, maybe don't spray, right? All of
Yeah.
these create
This
noise and draw
is
attention, right? Therefore, we're
yeah.
probably gonna not be too sneaky if they're paying attention at all.
You're
So
paying
just
attention. Yes.
crouch around, make sure we're trying to be a little bit quieter, and then also not too sure. Like I probably say this probably won't result in a ton. Like, so think this through a little bit, right? If we come from this angle, the most that's probably going to happen, and maybe we're trying to look for high noon here, whereas I probably say that that's not going to work too well, just because they might have a diva who just eats it. And then
Yeah.
if we're just trying to like flash right click someone, then we get like 1 kill and then die immediately. So that probably wouldn't do too much.
Yeah, like that would serve to her rather than help. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
All right, so we back up.
This is a moment where I realized everything that we just said in the moment, and I'm like, okay, let's go help my team, because last fight I did nothing. So I think that's an example of some level of brain power, I guess.
Exactly, right? We just want to try to get better to where we're at the point where we don't need to make that correction. We've just not made that decision in the first place, right? Which
Yeah,
is like
no,
kind of the same thing with the last fight where we walked in and then corrected ourselves mid fight, but by then it already cost us a lost fight, right? When we had walked in into that when we were down people.
Yep.
Don't move. I hear you.
Fire at will.
And now we've got the percentage. So
Whoa there.
All right. So we'll
Well,
get into this round a little bit. Oh, what just happened?
ready. Down. Odd.
thank you.
Okay. Watch the spam jumping. So that's it's a tiny thing, but it's still a thing. Just jumping, jumping, right? That's just going to the big thing is just especially
Makes
the
it
higher up in.
easier for enemies to actually hit the headshot.
Exactly.
I know that because I watch it all the time, seeing it in other people. I need to fix it. That's
Exactly, right.
100%.
I feel like a new
All right, so you
man.
can just. Now it's hard. Dude, it's hard to pause it on it when you have the recoil going, but you can see kind of the crosshair placement again here, where we're just kind of walking in, looking down here, right? Which in comparison to where people's heads are, just is way too
Yeah.
low, and just means that headshots is gonna be much harder to hit. And then you can see like that we're looking down, and then we flick up, and then we're looking down, and then we flick up, right?
Feel like a new man.
Yeah.
Eh.
Definitely the main theme of this is just better placement so that it's gonna be where it needs to be.
So let's talk about actions per minute real quick. So actions per minute is just making sure we're doing things as often as possible, and that's kind of what we found when we're just sitting out of that fight, and then about to sit out of another fight, and then here where we just kind of did this long rotation where we where we shot at some stuff, and then we just backed out, and then we had this large gap where we just didn't participate in this fight. So here, for example, we probably could have just
I
rolled
feel
over
like
to
a
our
new
team.
man.
We re-peek,
Yeah.
we get we get booped back. Right, we just maybe here we could roll to get back sooner, but we're just weren't in the fight for a couple of seconds. So action sprint is just doing as much as possible. And if you compare like a grandmaster player to like a bronze player, right? Grandmaster players, for the most part, with mistakes added, right, is going to be efficient with every single second of their gameplay. Whereas a bronze player might go pew pew pew, shoot shoot shoot, and then they'll take a random 5-10 second pause, and then they'll go pew pew pew, shoot shoot shoot, and then they'll be distracted by the scenery. Ooh, look, pretty birdies, right? And then they'll go, oh yeah, I'm in a fight, right? Pew pew pew, shoot shoot shoot. That's we're not seeing that extent because obviously you're not bronze, but it is still a
Yeah.
little bit of that where especially like in the last fight where we just didn't participate at all. And then you see a lot of like scattered around, but we just want to make sure we're doing things constantly and not just sitting out of fights. Missing the May who just kind of walled right next to us, right? Just awareness
Yeah, I
again,
rolled
listening,
with-
watching.
Yeah, I rolled to get the Baptiste because I value that more than meh.
Which I mean, probably say that. So yeah, so there we went for the Baptiste, but like, yeah, okay. So let's rewatch this for a second. So yeah, we go for the Baptiste, but May's just pretty much a free kill right now, especially with the usage of a flashbang. Like here, we could just flashbang right click, and then that's a free kill on the May. Whereas Baptiste,
Yeah, I don't think May was actually on my screen. Like if you go into first person, I don't think that I actively saw the May.
in that case, then you get into audio awareness of making sure we're listening for footsteps, right?
Yeah.
And we're listening for the fact that we walled her. So here, let's see, we see her on the right side of our screen. We see her pushing in, right? We see the icicle go straight past our face. We just saw there on the bottom of us. And then we hear her walking around underneath us too. So it's just all these tiny little things that should be adding up, right? So we're paying attention. All right. So back to practice range. So real quick here, well, I wanted to take some extra time to go over that, but since we had that long portion at the at the beginning where we were on Hog, but we are nearing the end of the session, so we're gonna do a
Justice
quick
ain't in
kind of what are the
space.
main points of the session with a quick review as well in there, and then wrap up the session from there. So first off, main points. Let's see, what was the biggest point? So ability usage in High Noon, you needed some work, but they're also not insanely important on McCree.
Double kill.
And then let's think this through. So probably mechanics had a lot to it. Positioning. Okay, so probably say mechanics is number one. So mechanics of making sure we're aiming head level, making sure that we're keeping good crosshair placement, maybe upping our sensitivity or getting a bigger mouse space, so we don't not having to adjust nearly as much. Then on top of that, and then crosshair placement will, when you're keeping it in a good place, it'll mean that again that you'll have to adjust less, right? Which will be better for you. Then on top of that, we have actions per minute, making sure we're constantly trying to do things. And then let's see, was there anything else in there? Trying to think. I feel like there's one more thing, but
Basic positioning, making sure that I'm not actively going into the line of fire whenever I need to back off.
yeah. So then that gets into positioning. So let's think. What were some?
Oh, I remembered it. Other the enemy team composition dictates how you play.
Yeah, that goes into awareness.
That
Yeah.
was a huge one for me.
Yeah. So then I think number 2 will be awareness, right? The number 2 thing to work on will be awareness. Awareness, right? Just a lot of times we just aren't paying attention to things around us. So enemy team comp dictates playstyle, and paying attention to team comps at the beginning of the game, right? That's definitely a big one. That's why you probably want to get into the
Rest
habit
in
of pressing
peace.
tab in between like every single fight. That way you can just check, did our team swap any characters? Did their team swap any characters, right? Just paying attention to those, right, in between fights. And then also just paying attention at the very beginning of the game. Make sure we're paying attention to other, like, where is my team at and where's the enemy team at, so that we're not, first off, we're not walking in without our team when we're down people, and then also so that we're not missing the Mei when she just walks underneath us, or there are other situations where we just didn't notice people, right? So it's going to give us better awareness and allow us to make better decisions. Number 3, probably then we'll put that at our positioning, right? Making sure that where were some of the positioning ones? Making sure that we're not out in the open. Good positioning is the usage of cover, whereas bad positioning is the absence of cover. Make sure we're not walking ahead of our tanks, but we're sticking behind them. Up against a dive, stay with your team, right? Don't stray too far from them. Make sure, when and then I think those are the main ones, right? Moving on to number 4. Probably say High Noon usage. So I didn't see a ton of value being gotten out of High Noon. Like I didn't get to see a lot of kills or a lot of value, being got, right? Make sure we're being a little bit more ambitious with it. Make sure we're doing a little bit more, using it more often. Try not to hold on to it for too long, just because holding on to it means it doesn't do anything. If it's overtime or we're about to cap, we can zone people out using our ults, because then they just force to run into it, and then also just look for situations better that we can use it in. Then that is pretty much it with that one. And then ability usage comes in at last. Maybe it's around the same as the High Noon usage, right? Making sure that we are flashing people when they're next to us, because there are a couple times where we just kind of let people pass when we had the ability. And then besides that, making sure that we are and then I think that was pretty much it. I don't think we talked about roll at all. So yeah, it's just that tiny little thing. So those are all the main ones. Hog, make sure you're landing your hooks, and then that is pretty much it. So do you have any questions about anything we've talked about?
No, that was all very, very helpful. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
no problem, man. So I'll just go and tell your boss man that I did it for you, and then I will see you around. Bye bye. Oh, also just what?
Oh no, I was just saying see you later. Oh, what's up?
Yeah. So yeah, if you just want any other coaching, just feel free to hit me up, and I'd be happy to hook you up. And then yeah, I'll just contact me whenever if you ever have any other questions. And then I forgot to add in as well. I'll get you a recording. Oh, I forgot to stop recording.